Good evening, everybody. So I'm Yelena, and I have with me another TA, Linish, and Professor Gopati. So the purpose of tonight's WebEx is to help you get started with your Spark tutorial assignment. So I put together an agenda, and first we're gonna start with the fun part. Linesh is going to discuss the details on a Kaggle competition. Then we're going to talk about how to ask effective questions to get your answer faster. Then I'm just gonna talk about the walkthrough assignment and some troubleshooting tips and question answers. So I'm going to let Linesh speak. Linesh, your
Sure.
turn. Go ahead. And do you need to share the screen or something?
Yes, I will be doing that. If you can please give me presenting rights.
Okay. So let me give you the ball. Go ahead. Oops. Okay.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so good evening, everyone. This is Lanesh, and I know we want to kind of get started with this Kaggle competition. I don't know how many of you have already noticed this note that we had put in our discussion box in the interesting and important section of our discussions that we have this Kaggle competition started. We just kind of had mentioned this briefly last time, but this overview or details wouldn't have come at the at a good time here, especially when we had a few of our students, especially one in this class, who won the competition in China. So, congratulations to all our winners. And now I think we would, probably see many more to come in the near future. So this particular competition is being set to kind of, get you there, get your feet wet with what competition, is about, and how you would kind of, do your problem solving, what kind of practicing is required, what kind of model building is required, your perseverance. So this would be a perfect sandbox for you to try all that, right? I mean, to come up with different ideas and solve a problem. The problem that we've kind of put it up for you is a pretty simple problem, but it definitely takes you through all those steps that you may need in future, not just for competition's sake, but also at your workplace, right? I mean, we have you've gone through all the different classes, building models, training models, and doing all that, and building your report or putting up a paper for it. Now is the time to kind of see, okay, what could you do to kind of extend, right? I mean, before when you put up your report, how can you do this more effectively? So, we are, and just to let you know that UMUC is one of the very few elite universities who's kind of staging this competition on the Kaggle portal, which is now owned by Google. But it's one of the very prestigious prestigious competitions being out here, and as I said, we have this of being one of the few universities, along with Stanford, Harvard, University of Berkeley. So very few are out there who are kind of staging these competitions for their students for different semesters. So please take advantage of this. And as I said, this is very simple. It may feel overwhelming, but I'm just going to break it down for you. And you may also want to spend some time, going over, some information that, that I'll kind of share with you today, and you can read it on your own time, and also kind of share a very simple code to kind of just show you how you could, build it in just, few different steps, few lines of code. You can really build and train effective models to kind of beat this and really be ahead of, being in that competition league, being that league that you could even take this to your work or in future, or even if you're already into that particular arena. So with that, let me dive right into this particular competition website. And as I mentioned before, that there is already we've kind of shared this with you before. There's a link that has been provided, which will help you to get onto this particular site. And first thing here on this site that you'll have to do once you click that link is register yourself on this website. And just the information here, if you are going to register and have a username, that is going to be different than your student name in UMUC, then you'll have to just let me know who you are. Just identify yourself so you would know that whose information is being published here on this website. Okay, so that's important. But yes, you can register yourself with either your Yahoo account or your Google or your Facebook account, or you can just create your own personal account here with a email ID and or maybe even using your UMAC ID, which I would kind of strongly recommend if you don't have an account here. Okay. So any questions up to this point before we dive into this particular website? Okay, I'll take that silence as no. So once you get onto this website, the first thing that it's going to ask you is to accept the rules and regulations of this website and of this particular competition. And I'll go over some of the most important rules to kind of keep in mind. So once we get there, you see this particular tab, it says rules. By the way, once you get to this website, you see there are different tabs here. There's an overview, there's data, there's kernels, discussion, leaderboard, rules, team. One particular tab that you would not see is what I'm seeing here is the host, right? So a couple of us, we would kind of see that, in the faculty, we may see this host here, but you would not see this host particular tab. The rest would all be available to you. Sorry, is that a question? I see some noise in the background. If there's a question, please speak up again, or maybe you want to go on mute. Appreciate it. All right, so as in just a very quick overview, as I mentioned, this is a very, very simple data set, which maybe some of you would have used it in the past for your assignments or just for practicing, and that's okay if you have done that. And as a matter of fact, you get some advantage of knowing the data set already. And so we kind of have used this data set and given you some information about this data set just to make sure where we are kind of picking it up from, what is the source, and some relevant information about the data set here. So basically, just kind of in summary, this has got only major 6 input attributes of a particular car. What you have to do here is, given the attributes of a car, you have to come up with the one of the 4 different classes of car, whether it's acceptable, whether it's unacceptable, whether it's in a good condition, or whether it's in a very good condition, right? So these are different classes, categories that you would classify your car, and hence the the name of this competition or this particular data set is car evaluation competition, or the car evaluation database. Okay. So as you see here, as I was saying, that there are 6 basic input attributes. There's a buying price, the maintenance price, the number of doors of the car, person's capacity, the number of persons it would carry, the size of the luggage boot, and the safety, the estimated safety of the car. Now, given this, you have to predict whether the car is acceptable, unacceptable, good, or very good. Okay. So you may want to go through this, when you find more time, but I'm just going to, in interest of time here for our session, I'm just going to walk through some of these tabs here. Now, the most important tab that you would need is this one here. Of course, precisely a couple of others as well, but this is the one which would get you started, right? So the data set is all available here. The first one, I would say, is the cars.train data set that you would use for training the model. This is purely used for training the model, and then there are a certain number of records in here that you will find in this particular. So there are in total there are not more than 700 records, 750 records that you're going to play with. So it's not that huge database. We want to keep it very simple. Hopefully you will not run into any kind of memory issues or download issues with this. So we're kind of keeping it as simple as possible, yet kind of make it a very effective exercise for you. The cars test data set is the one that you would test your model against. So we already done some work for you here. Instead of allowing you or making you break this sample data set into training data set and test data set, we've already done this piece for you. So there's one thing that it is already out of your way, and you don't have to really go about doing it in different ways. Okay. The next is the car's sample submission, and this is just a submission file. This is just kind of giving a format of the submission file that you will have to come up with as an output so that you could upload it here on the website. Okay, and what you would need to predict, at the end of everything, you will have once you kind of trained your model using the training data set, tested it with the test data set, then you have to kind of predict all the different cars that are part of this CSV file. And some of the cars you'll probably see it in the training and test data set, but some of them you may not even see it in either of these data sets. So don't be surprised. It's just kind of throwing you a brand new cars there, which really and happens in real life, right? I mean, you would train something against what you already have as historical information, and then you would have to really run the model against some new information. So this is kind of actually setting you up for that. And once you have done that, as I said, you would just build a submission file. And I'll just kind of quickly show you a code to, just a very simple code to take you through that, okay, and how you would kind of build it and build this even output file as well. The next is the kernels. This is a typical tab that is, so most of these tabs are kind of typical for any of the Kaggle competitions. So if you are someone who's already aware of these portal and the competitions, have taken part in it, you may kind of clearly identify that these are some of the common tabs that you would kind of see if you enter into a competition. But we haven't provided any kernels here as a ready-made, as a sample code. As I said, this is a very simple kind of a data set and a simple exercise here. So we haven't provided you any sample code. We may just show you one here, but there's no we're kind of not planning to put up this sample code here at all, because we want to kind of make sure that you are more creative and coming up with different ideas to solve this problem rather than mimic your code against that sample code. That's the only reason why we're not providing you any sample code or like a walkthrough here. Discussion, yes, please feel free to discuss amongst yourself once you are entered onto this website, and feel free to discuss. But I don't want you to kind of just give away different pieces of code, because one of the most important rules, as I kind of go through with you today, is that you would not form teams with anybody, and you would not share your code, because one thing, remember, at the end of this competition, if you are in the top rung, which I'm sure you must all be kind of looking forward to being in that top rung of competitors and get that extra credit points that Professor Gopati had kind of mentioned, and in a way we had kind of mentioned as well, that you definitely get an extra point for it, which could be a big difference between a B and a, or kind of confirming that you would remain and you'll get A in this class here. So it's kind of important to get that extra credit points, and plus taking this advantage. Now the leaderboard here is just showing you when you make the submission here, you would see your submission come up here, and it will kind of give you a certain score. What you see here is just a benchmark submission that I'd kind of submitted here, when I kind of worked on this competition. So there's something that you could take this as a benchmark. Now Linesh did not do very well at all. Look at his score, right? It's 0.23. So you got a lot of opportunity here to beat me already in this competition, because my score, or the benchmark score, is so low. So you want to kind of go as high as 0.999 or even 100% if you can, right? Or maybe 1.0. So just try for the additional. So the higher scores you get, the better off you are. And as I said, you're already in a place that you're already going to be running for beating this benchmark and beating my my simple submission here. Okay, so I know went through quite a bit already. Once again, before I go into a little bit more here, any questions? Okay, silence is golden. Okay, keep going here. So one more thing about the you may notice here, there's a public leaderboard and a private leaderboard. Now the difference between public and private is once again one important thing to note here. When you submit your your file and you come up with a score here, you're actually being scored for 70% of your samples. Now, this is going to be standard across all submissions. What I mean by that is that if there is a certain number of cars that 30% of the cars and particular cars that are not going to be rated right now are going to be it's the same for all others as well. So the same cars are not going to be put in the mix here. So only 70% of your submission will be scored and will be displayed here. This is just to kind of keep up some excitement here, right? So and once the competition closes, you would see that it is rated against your entire 100%. So that last 30% is also then scored and rated. So you may see a difference between what you kind of see on the public leaderboard versus what you would see at the end, where you may say, okay, my score was 0.98 a month back, but at the end of the competition it went to 99. So what that means is that the 30% of the remaining cars data set, you were able to really do well in that last 30%, and which is good. Or it may even go down, right? Because you may have done very well with the 70% of the rated cars, but in the last 30% just brought your score down. So you want to kind of keep improvising, and as a way I'll kind of go over how many submissions you can provide. You can have more than one submission, right? Just to be safe, just to make sure that that you can really beat up. I see a question coming from Rachel. Rachel, could you please speak up? I was not able to see the chat screen, so I'd appreciate if you could just speak up and let everybody know what your question is. Rachel, we are not able to hear you. Looks like Rachel is having some problem with her headset or audio. Okay, Rachel, we'll kind of come back to you. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so now the important tab here, which is the rules tab, right? So I know there's a lot of information here, and I don't intend to read through all of that in interest of time. But the important point here is that the model building process, right? We talked about the training data set that's provided. You may want to train your data with it. You want to test the data set with whatever the test file that has been provided. You have been provided with a submission file or the final prediction, right? You've been given some cars that you would have to predict, and so you can kind of be provided. Okay, so Rachel's question is, the data is already been partitioned. So do you need cleaning? Well, it is just partitioned for you, but it is up to you when you get to see the data set whether if it needs any extra cleaning or not. If it doesn't, then it's fine. But I'm not kind of saying that it's already a clean data. All I'm saying is it's a partitioned data for you. Rachel, does that answer your question? Okay, thanks. All right, so that's about the model building process. You would have one account per participant. So once again, no private sharing outside of Teams. You cannot share your code. You cannot pair up with anyone to kind of form a team and make a submission here, which in some cases, in some of the Kaggle competitions, you would see that, that you could, form teams, and you could also, submit it as like a group submission. You could do all that, but not for, this particular competition. The important point or the section here is this competition timeline. And the start date, it has already been started, and this is the day that I kind of shared the link with you. Your deadline is going to be July 29th. So it is going to give you ample time to really work with this data set. And trust me, I mean, if I show you a sample code right now, just in a few minutes, I will kind of just quickly, you'll be able to glance through the code. It's just few lines of code just to be in this competition, and I want you to kind of take advantage of that. Maybe with just a very simple code, you could just get in and beat into this, and you would not need this 2 months. You'll be able to just get done as and when you get chance, within the next few weeks here. Okay, so it's 1 week before your semester ends. Your competition would be ending, and that final week, is going to be the time when I would be, or one of us, Dr. Gopati or myself or Yelena could be asking you for for the code that you could share with us. We'll be taking a look at the code, making sure it is not being copied over, or if you kind of follow the process and so on and so forth before we announce the winners. And of course, along with that winning, and of course comes the extra points, right? Okay, so to participate, and I'm sure many of you would do well, as in the past, where students were able to score 99%, and even a couple of students did even get on and did so well with their models, the multiple models, that they came up with a score of 100. So that was fabulous and excellent, guys. And so I'm kind of just setting the bar here for you, that and it's not a difficult task at all. Let me tell you that. So just some information, just go over that, but I just kind of briefly went over some of the important pieces here, so you'll be kind of accepting all these rules before you kind of get started with this competition. A team, we really need to go through this. As I mentioned, no forming teams. The My Submissions page is just showing you your submissions, and the thing that when you're done with your output file, you just click on the Submit Predictions, and what you can do here is you need to kind of bring up your file, upload your submission file here. So you'd be uploading your submission file once it has come up with the format that it is really intending. So you were expecting the solution file to have 434 prediction rows. It will kind of quickly validate that you have already provided this 434 prediction rows. You have the 2 columns that we are looking for, and it is kind of done automatically while you're uploading this page. And once done, you can just briefly describe just a one-liner or whatever important information you want to share, and make that submission. And once you make that submission, it will come up here in a few seconds, or maybe just a minute or two, depending on your internet speed. You would see that you would come up with this information that you see for this particular submission here, along with the score. And you will be able to see not just your score, but the other scores as well. So when in the beginning, you would see this particular score that's kind of submitted by me. Okay. All right. So before I just kind of help you with the code and what it kind of looks like, and just glance through it, any questions at this point? Okay, so let me just take you through the, okay. All right, so so this is a pretty piece of code here. Once again, do not get carried away or think that you need to mimic this code. But this is one of the actual submissions in the past from one of the students, and just using it for kind of just took some liberty to modify it a bit for our discussion here, and to show you that just very simple code, but very effective. It came up with it got almost like one of the models where we got like an accuracy of almost 97-98% or so, or even more. So just a simple R code, and once again, that reminds me to mention that you could either use Python code, you may use R code, you may use SAS Enterprise Miner, whatever works for you. So you're free to kind of use any of the tools or the languages that you've learned in this or during the past few courses, including this one, and make use of any tool set, right? And any toolkit that you would like. But remember that at the end, you have to provide that solution to us. If it is a SAS Enterprise Miner, maybe the diagram, the chart that you could provide us. If it is an R code, you can just take a sample R code from here and then provide that. And same thing goes for Python. So as you see here, the different sections, some of it would be very commonly used, and you will find it in your code and all the other R code as well, where you load the required libraries. Just going to read in some of the CSV files. So which are the 3 CSV files you really need? You need the training data set. So here it is reading the train data set. The next is the test data set. So it is kind of reading the test data set, and then the final prediction data set, because you really want to predict, right? You want to know which cars you would be predicting at the end. So you're doing it all in one shot. I mean, just reading it up front all these different files. Only one thing that you notice that was done here is that it just removed the cars.id field from the test and the training data set. Now, so one of the methods used here, once again, I'm not kind of preaching or asking you to kind of use the same method. There are different ways to do it. It's just using some kind of a training controls. So we're using a training control here, the method of repeated, cross-validation. It's a 5-fold cross-validation, which is repeated 5 times. So that's what the training control, this particular controls that we are setting up here. We are also building a grid parameter for making. I mean, this is nothing. Grid parameters are basically you're running this, 5-fold, 5 repeats of a cross validation for a different kind of, for all different combinations of certain factor variables, certain factors that different combinations you could kind of, run your repeated CV. So it's not just run 5 times, but think about it. It's repeated 5 times over all the different combinations that you provide. Like you want to add some more factors to your fitting model, right? To fit your model, to some of the controls that you want to add. So it's just showing you how you can add that, and then you kind of create your models using that training control or the grid control, right? If you want, or the grid parameters. So the first one, let's say using the cart 5.0 model, the tree 5.0 model, you're using the training your linear model. So this way you are kind of building different models here because you don't know which one is really going to be good. And once again, there could be multiple ways to build this or train multiple models here. And once you kind of have done that, you want to kind of see which is the effective model, right, amongst all these different models. So you're clubbing all these different models into list here to kind of say, okay, I want to see which model is really the good model, right? I mean, yes, you could summarize, and you probably already know this. One of the reasons why I'm kind of going this as quickly as possible here, and making sure you kind of don't have to really dive into this code and understand it. But what I'm trying to tell you is you have different models created. You want to kind of summarize and kind of see how these models, right, which is the one, this is going to be the most effective model here. And there are multiple ways to kind of look at different models and visualize them, right? There are 7 or 8 different ways. We kind of shown here 2 different ways here, which is a box plot. We have a dot plot as well. So this is the box plot version or the visualization here, which is kind of showing you 2 different measures like accuracy and kappa, and kind of seeing. So if you look at after all these models have been trained, run, you see that you've created the neural net is really worked well with its accuracy, and even with the kappa measure, it has really done well. So once you kind of identify that which model is a good model for you to work, or maybe it's a combination of different models. If you're using something like a SAS Enterprise Miner and you've used different models, that's also fine. Like a random forest, you kind of do it. You can use a random forest model. You can use like a combination of different models, or you can just pick one particular model that really works the best for you. And in this case, we picked that neural net has worked best. So we kind of say, okay, let's now use the neural net to predict for your test data set. And once you've done that, then of course you want to create a confusion matrix. You want to run a summary against it and see if the accuracy really looks good, right? What you kind of identified or what you have seen here on this plot here, right? So we had a couple of plots, just the same kind of almost similar information, but different visualization techniques here, right? So which one you kind of use to kind of make sure that you identify the right model. So once you've gone through your test data set, then you would go into your prediction of the final set that has been given to you, right? Your final prediction, and you would run this model against the final prediction and simply create a file, create an output file with that final prediction, which would have 2 columns. One is the car ID, and the other is class, and simply, just write the CSV file with this. And this also shouldn't take longer. As I said, this data set is less than, like there are only 434 odd records in here. I'm just using a simple write.csv here to kind of create that sample submission that I could upload. So as you see here, it is just a few sections required. You kind of read your files, you kind of tune your parameters, or you could do it in multiple ways, right? Some of you may have used looping kind of method to just try different tuning parameters. You may have used a training control that we kind of saw here, that you could use training controls. You can use or add some more factors to it using the grid parameters, and run your model. The whole idea is training the model with different parameters and seeing what works best for you. And once you kind of identified the right model that you want to go with, you create an output file. So it is just a few sections, few lines of code, but it would kind of go a long way and make this an effective submission for you. Okay, so I know I ran through this once again very quickly, but not really go line by line into the code. The whole idea is just to show you how simple it is to work with this data set, build your models, which you have already done in the past. So there's not much of a learning except some more practicing, some perseverance required, and some practice required here, which is going to really set you up for participating in competitions in future, or really taking this to your workplace, right? Or in future, or maybe even today that you're kind of working with. This is some of the things that you really do, right? You can't just take on one model, just build it with default parameters. You use multiple parameters, see which one really works best for the data set on hand. Okay, so going to take a pause here and now kind of open up for any questions before we wrap this up. So any questions? Okay. All right. So if there's no questions, but you still have some, there is an interesting and important section that I mentioned, which has this Kaggle competition thread in there. If you still have questions, you can still just respond to that thread, and we'll kind of keep taking from there. Okay. So if I don't see any questions on the chat as well, so I'm going to hand it over back to Yelena. All right. Okay. Thanks everyone, and good luck.
All right. So this is a email address that you may use to contact Linesh, and his email is also on the course syllabus. All right. So let's continue. Oops, I need to steal the right to share. Okay. Oh, okay. There we go. So now I can move on to the next slide. So here it is. So I want you guys to keep in mind that asking questions effectively is part of the being data scientist and data analyst. So what do I mean asking questions effectively? So suppose that you're having an issue, technical issue, as you're working on a homework assignment. You would want to post your question in a discussion, but you need to say, okay, what is my expected result? What steps do I need to follow to reproduce the problem, right? So this is what I'm expecting to get. This is what I see instead. And you may want to attach the screenshot because it's much easier to help you if you have a screenshot of an error message and the steps how to reproduce the error. All right? So please, guys, be aware of it. An example of ineffective question would be, oh, I have tried this, but it does not work. Or something like that, right? I uploaded my notebook and it does not work. This question really does not tell me much what's going on, and of course as a TA I'm going to reply, I'm going to respond, would you please give me the steps of exactly what you are trying to do and a screenshot of an error message. So here we've got some back and forth, and it's going to delay getting the answer, right? So just keep in mind, asking questions effectively is part of your career. Alright, let's move on. Here it is. So here are some general key to success on this assignment, and it's also applicable to other assignments. So keep in mind this quote in here, procrastination is a thief of time, right? So for each assignment, we want you guys to start early. We want you to ask effective questions, and also you want to keep an eye on questions and answer discussion. It's there for a reason. So sometimes if you're struggling, if you're running into an error, it's highly possible that your schoolmate already resolved the error, right? Somebody could post a question and you will see, in fact, you may see different solutions. The TA responds, an instructor responds, your schoolmate can respond with different answers, right? So also you want to follow the instructions carefully, right? And you want to read everything in the walkthrough file. Because usually the way it is that first we give you a big picture. In the first page of the walkthrough, you usually see an introduction on what you're going to be doing, what's the purpose, right? And another thing that might help you is that look at the table of contents, because table of contents tells you the overview, the general steps in the process, right? So basically, you look at the headings. All walkthroughs heavily utilize the headings. Level 1 heading are the general steps. Level 2 subheadings could be the sub-steps, or it could be the different approach. Perhaps if you have Mac operating system, that's what you do. If you have Windows, that's what you do, right? That's an example of the last assignment, right? I'm just using last assignment as an example. Now here, you want to follow instructions carefully. For the Spark notebook, you want to run it from the very top. Now, keep in mind, when you submit an assignment, only one submission is allowed. You have to attach all files in a single submission. Alright, but I think everybody did an excellent job with submitting all files in a single submission for your first assignment. Keep it up. Now, another thing is that while you're taking a test, well, test is actually quiz, right? You may want to keep your notebook open, notebook with an output, because there are some questions on the output. Now, some of you may have missed the self-assessment in the week 1 and 2 course content. Keep in mind, it's there for a reason, right? It's there for a reason. So if you see the same question reused somewhere on a graded assignment, that's a fair game. Alright, so let's continue. Alright, so here is one of the error messages that some of you received, and there are some extra steps. And I'm going to show you actually when I start sharing the screen. So there are some extras that you need to do, and some of you, if you created your account before November 2017, or if you created an object storage before actually creating your first project, you may get an error message. Unable to create an object storage bucket, right? And I put the solution on the next slide. Well, it might make more sense actually. Let me go ahead, and I'm going to get into Spark. I'm going to share my screen quickly. So let me do that. Let me go share my screen. And I'm gonna get into the Spark. But first of all, I should have given you a big picture of what we're using here. We are going to use the Watson Studio. And what's Watson Studio? It's an integrated environment. And in this course, you'll be using it right now to run your Apache Spark notebooks. Later in the course, you'll be using it for the RStudio, right? At some point, especially in your last assignment, you will be using the integrated RStudio environment. But let's save that for the last. So here, when you log in, most of you see the community page. There are some sample notebooks and some interesting articles and tutorials that you may want to explore at your leisure. But for the purpose of this assignment, you're going to create a project, right? So what is a project? Project allows you organizing a set of related, so to speak, assets based on a task. So here your task is a tutorial, right? So you're going to put your notebook and a data set in the same project, right? So basically what you'll do is there is more than one way to accomplish this task. I can just go in and I can click on create new here and then select project. Right? There is more than one way to get to it. So here, error, retrieving object storage. Okay, well, okay, suppose that I got this error, right? Whenever I get this error, what you guys need to do, and I put this web page on a slide. Oops. I put that web page on a slide for users. There is a web page that tracks the IBM Cloud status, right? And right now, unfortunately, that's interesting. There is a maintenance, but it does not matter. You usually read what it affects. So this is a temporary outage. But whenever you're running into an issue, promise me that you're going to do yourself a favor and you're going to check the status page, right? You're going to go back here, and I put this web page on a slide. So see this, so here is a status, and whenever there is an issue, you can check the current service availabilities. And here you want to keep an eye on the notifications. It's going to tell you when there is expected planned downtime, so you can schedule your work accordingly, right? You can schedule your work accordingly. Anyways, so let me go back and see what was going on. Basically, what you would need to do is you're gonna click on a new project. Oops, here it is, right? Oh, let me try it differently. Let me go here, project, view all projects. Okay, view all project, and let's see. Let me go do that, and I'm gonna do new project from here. There we go. See this? It loaded now. Okay, and I'm going to call this project as let's call it this. Now, keep in mind that you can only have one project with the same name, so I have to use something that I have not used. Then it's optional. I can enter my description here, and here this is my cloud object storage. When you are creating your first project, you're not going to have an object storage, so you'll see a button to create it, right? That's creating on the fly. And I'm just going to you would need to hit new and then follow the steps and instructions to create. But since I already created mine, it's pre-populated, and I'm just going to hit create project, right? That will finalize. Depending on your connection speed, it might take a little bit of time to create a project, right? But while it's doing, okay, we're done. All right, so what's gonna happen here? Look at this. By default, I'm on the overview page. Here, it's telling me how much storage I have available and how much storage I have used in the project. And you see I have 25 gigabytes. The number here could be slightly different for the student account. I have a faculty account, so keep that in mind. Alright, so assets page usually lists the notebooks and the datasets that I have inside the project. And but what you're gonna do first is you would have to get into the settings. So this is my project name, and here I would see the description if I entered. This is the name of my object storage. This is important. You have to write this down, right? You have to write this down. So do whatever works for you. Oops. I can do this, file, new, and I can just paste that into the textpad editor. Alright, so here, right now, I don't have anything associated. I need to associate my Spark service with the project. This is an important step. So I'm going to click on Add Service, and I'm going to select Spark. Now, here is the important part. If this is your first time, this is your first project, and if you have not created the Spark service before, you're going to be on a new, and then you're going to select Light, Free, right? And you're going to click on Create. That's what you're going to do. But since I already have my service, I'm just going to do selected existing one and this one, right? So just keep that in mind. You see what I did? This is what you'll be doing for your assignment 2. You'll be selecting an existing Spark service. You will not be creating a second copy of the service. you will be selecting your existing service. And click on select, right? There we go. So now, this is my project, right? I always like to scroll down just to verify that the service was selected as expected. My next step is I need to go down to the assets page, and I'm going to add my notebooks. So there are 3 ways to add the notebook, actually 4. The first way is that you can save the notebook from the community. Remember I showed you the community, there are sample notebooks. So just remind me to show you how to do that later in the demo. Alright, so here it is, notebook, new notebook, right? And I want to do it from file. Now, very important here, before I forgot, this is a common mistake, and here you want to select Spark. You want to select Spark for your runtime, right? If Elena repeats something, it's important, right? Okay, so now I'm gonna click on choose file, and this is how actually you are going to do this. You're going to select the file, right? Employee attrition analysis. Ignore this other 2. This other 2 you will get on the next assignment. The other 2 notebooks that I have. So let me go in. Look at that. So once I uploaded the notebook, this is the file name. It got pre-populated, but I can always rename. Okay. So now I'm gonna click on create notebooks. But before you do that, well, Elena always wants to verify that I selected Apache Spark service. I did what expected. And I'm gonna click on create notebook. Because sometimes when you make a mistake, it could be very difficult to fix. Okay? So now what's gonna happen is the notebook is supposed to open in edit mode. Right? And the Spark service started. Well, for some unknown reason, it shows not trusted. I can just click on trust. I can just click on it, go to trust. Alright, so here on the top, I see that I'm using the Spark version. I'm using Python 3.5, Spark 2.1. So make sure your Python version matches this here, right? Some of the notebooks in our community section are still in Spark 2.1. So the main difference here is that in your print statement, the statement that prints to the screen, you have to have parentheses. In Spark 3.5 and Python 3.5, you have to have a parenthesis in a print statement. In an earlier version, it would still work if you did not, right? Notice that here in the notebook you have different types of cell. This is a markdown cell. That's also the documentation on what the code does. So pay attention, because in your next assignment there'll be several steps. For the second step, you'll be writing code and you'll be adding comments about what your code does, right? So this is a markdown. And there are also the code cells. Code cells is actually the cells that you run, and it generates the output, right? So when you start, you're going to run the notebook starting from the top. And this is a play button, right? I'm gonna hit run, I'm gonna hit run, run. I'm still good to run this cell, right? Because this one just returns the Spark that I'm on, right? I'm gonna do that. But now, wait a minute, Elena did not follow her own instructions. What did Elena say needs to be done first? Well, because, the way the walkthrough is structured, that we want you to do what needs to be edited in the code first and then run. But, let's do that. I have to upload my data set, right? So, I'm going to click on the data, and it will open the slide out panel. And it will show me, it's supposed to list the files that I have already uploaded to this project. In this case, I have not uploaded any. So I have several options in here. One option is to drag and drop the files that I want to be using, or alternatively, I can just... Oops, did it do that? Yes, it did it. Alright. So depending on the browser version, what I did may or may not work. If it does not, you just click on Browse. Okay, So now, watch what I'm doing. My cursor is sitting in this cell. At the same time, I'm going to click in here and I have to select the middle option. Okay, we want to do the Spark session data frame. Because in this notebook, there are several things illustrated. You are shown how to use the data frames and you're shown how to use the RDD. So now, here, these are my credentials, but do not take a screenshot of that. It won't work. Trust me, it won't work. You have to use your credentials. Now, some of you have asked, is this okay to keep it as 2? No, you have to modify it. The instructions tell you to modify this, and it's because you're using this variable further down in the code. You're using it in here. See this? And it's called df_data_1. Okay? I could have used the more descriptive name, but well, that's a different question. So we did that. Then there is another change that you're asked to make to your code. Here I have several options. I can go back to the text editor and I can copy the bucket number in here. Right? I can copy that. That's one option. Or I can just copy it from here and you have to paste it in here. Right? The instructions say to replace this word bucket. And that's it, I'm good to go, right? I shouldn't have ran any code until I got to this point, but okay. Now I'm gonna run this. How do I know that this thing is still running? See this star? When it's done, you're gonna see that it's done, right? You're gonna see it's gonna change. But the thing is, right now, there is a little bit of, well, I'm still able to run it. The maintenance that is going on right now, it does not affect what I'm doing. Anyway, now, this is the output. See this? It's printing the first 5 rows, right? Take command, output first 5 rows. And I keep on going. So this is your task. Your task is to run this notebook. I'm not going to do that on your behalf, because that's called cheating, right? And one thing to keep in mind is that if you scroll down, you have some graded exercises. So here, we want you to write the code. It's just one line, right? So you want to write the code and you want to submit the code and the output, all right? And here you have a section on Spark SQL, so that's another reason you have some readings on Spark SQL. And you've got some different types of plots here. You have a bar plot and a pie chart, right? So you get to explore a little bit with that. All right? So let's go back to the slide. Oh, yes, I remember what I wanted to show you now. Some of you, when you attempted to create a project, you received an error related to the bucket number. Well, basically, whenever you create a new project, the new bucket gets allocated in the object storage. You want to make sure this. Look at this, manage. And then you want to select what's an admin console. Then you're going to select projects and catalog creation. And there are 2 checkboxes. You want to make sure that these 2 are checked. Okay? If for some unknown reason, the bucket fails to create, if the bucket fails to create for some unknown reason, right, if you get an error, you want to do this. That should do it, right? This happens when the object storage was created before the first project, or it could happen if your account has been active since November, or since before November, rather, okay? So let's go back to, I have a copy of the slides here, so I don't need to stop sharing. So what I did was I put the slide on this error message, since several people already ran into. Now, this is an important slide on restarting the kernel. Sometimes when you edit the code, you're making changes, right? But you want to make sure that you are running completely new version of the code. So you want to, in other words, you want to restart from scratch. And to restart from scratch, here instructions tell you what to do. There is a kernel menu, and you want to select restart and clear output. All right. So what that will do is it will clear all output in the notebook, and it will start. It allows you to restart. Like if there's anything in memory, it will clear. You can restart running notebook from the top, and you might end up doing it. If not on this assignment, on the next one, you might end up doing it. So I wanted to point that out. Right? Here, this is a web page that you want to check for the service status, and you want to know. Well, usually we try to announce it whenever possible, but well, sometimes suppose that some of you are running into issues such as you're unable to log in, just perhaps, right? You could check, are there any outages? Is the issue related something to my local PC, or is it my network? Or if everybody in the region is having an issue, well, something like that, right? You want to keep an eye on that. All right? So let's see, do we have questions? I'm sure we will. Questions are good. So class, this is perfect opportunity to ask questions you may have, right? Questions? So, and for your assignment deliverable, you need to save a notebook. You may save it as HTML, but then HTML file could be converted to PDF. Because one common issue that I've seen last semester is that the images sometimes don't get saved in HTML, right? So if this is the case, you want to convert your HTML to PDF. Or in the worst case scenario, take screenshots of the images and put it in a file where you submit the answers to the quiz questions, right? Because we want to make sure that the code was ran, right? That's the main idea. Well, main idea behind asking you to submit the output is that it approves that you ran the code, and also it approves that you did 5 exercises where you need to write the code. So, and on your next assignment, next Spark assignment, you'll be writing more code. You're gonna love it, right? So let me see. Are there questions? Let me go back. Let me stop sharing my screens, and I'm gonna see the chat window. Stop sharing. And also, if you post questions in the chat, make sure that you send it to everyone, so that way everybody can see them, right? So if there are no questions, I'm gonna say, Gopati, is there anything you would like to add to what I said already? Gopati, are you with us?
Yeah. So let's make sure people know how to create the, how to upload the notebook and attach the data. Anybody has any questions on that?
Oh,
so do you have any? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the survey. We're going to do a quick survey to ask you what time would work better for WebEx. Well, of course, it's a little bit difficult to find the right time in an online environment, except it's a synchronous environment, right? But we're going to do a little poll, so feel free to participate. Okay, so let me see.
Yeah, let's make. Do we have the poll on?
Well, I'm going to take care of it. After
Okay.
I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna set up a poll. Make sure you respond. The goal is simply to improve attendance and participation in WebEx meetings. Okay.
And Nancy, yes, of course, everything is in instructions. Yeah, but sometimes for some people it's helpful to have it in writing and also show, also, what do you call it, verbal. So some people like to see the instructions in more than one way. So we talk about it, and you also have written instructions. Yes, of course, Nancy. I think you're gonna get more instructions that you normally would at work, at full-time jobs. Trust me, because it has been well planned. So yes, everything is step by step, but I would recommend taking some time to read. So basically, to be quite honest, if you follow the instructions, the estimated time is about 2 to 3 hours. But I don't want you to wait until the end. If I say it's going to take you 3 hours, it does not mean that you can start at 9 p.m. when it's due and expect to meet the deadline. No, that's not how it works. You have to start early, because you want to make sure you have sufficient time. And sometimes when you start the last minute, trust me, it's really difficult to concentrate on a task, and you end up making mistakes. No way. So you want to start now. Okay?
And most importantly, you would see that the website is down, or that it's down for maintenance or something, which happens typically on the weekend. So you have to be very careful with that. Don't push all the work for the weekend only to find out that the website is down for maintenance for a few hours, and that's going to just not help you at all, and you may struggle to complete your assignment or tutorial.
Mm-hmm. So see, Lanesh, recently graduated from this program, so he's an expert. He can give you a lot of program survival tips, so to speak. Right, Lanesh?
Oh, absolutely. All these are like from my personal experiences, folks. So, I'm just letting you know. I don't want you to learn the hard way, as some of us did in the past, or like being a student, you tend to kind of push things out. Or I know you are busy at work and tend to push things out on the weekend, as I said, just to find out that the entire weekend is down, and you have to really wait for that 11 p.m. on a Sunday night to kind of still finish your assignment. So just beware.
And will the TA be still available to assist? That's another question. But no. You want to make sure you allow yourself sufficient time for the debugging. All right? Because it's quite common for us to receive a question half an hour before the assignment is due. We get question on the first line of code. Well, it's just an example of what not to do. I like to give examples of what not to do. Right? And your work piles up just before you know it. So make sure you start early, and you'll be perfect. I mean, trust me. So Lanesh can tell you from a student perspective. I tell you as a TA who has been doing this course since the first time it was offered at UMUC. So, yeah. And I was a student also at some point. All right? Gopati, anything else?
No, I just want to hear some questions from the participants. Are there any questions?
Oh, what did you say?
Comments? Any comments, questions?
Someone asked me what's due this weekend. Well, first of all, you guys need to do the discussion, right? This weekend you have to do the discussion post for this week.
Yep.
And then,
look at my response to your discussion post. Usually, I have one or more deeper questions related to what you have written. So please try to respond to that. That'll really help you understand the topic better.
Yeah, and start working. I mean, Jesse, just think about it this way. Break it down. Do part of the stuff by the end of this week, and another part by the end of next week. Or perhaps as you are reading, as you're doing the readings, keep those quiz questions in front of you, because you might find some answers on the first page of the reading. Okay. Peter, where do I get help with what? Graded code? Okay. Where you get help with the graded code? I'll tell you. Once you do the ungraded piece of code that was written for you, it should be simple. The answer is right there. Alright? But if you really run into trouble, your first line of help is TA. Okay? Your TA is your first line of help. Yeah, before I forgot, do not call IBM. First, we need to try to work on an issue internally, okay? So if there is something the TA cannot resolve, for instance, such as a global issue somewhere in the system, then, but unless you instruct it to, do not contact IBM. Your first line of help is a TA. So for this specific assignment, the code you need to write is very little, but for the next one is going to be big. But TAs are always there to help you, so you're in good hands. All right, did I answer your question, Peter? I hope I did. All right? Yes? Okay, sure. Anything else? Any questions? Gopati, go ahead, you tell some important stuff.
No, that's it. So, good luck on the tutorial and the assignment. Thanks, Elena, and thanks, Linesh.
So I'm going to stop.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a
good night.
Good night. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Bye.